Welcome everybody. I'm glad that you're back again. And today I want to talk about how you can start to really transform social anxiety. Social anxiety is the fear of social situations, right? And I can really talk about this because I have dealt with social anxiety. And a lot of times people will find that out because I do YouTube, or I do coaching, or I do public speaking, or they'll see me being very outgoing and gregarious and speaking to a bunch of people in public or whatever it is, and they'll want to know how that's possible, that I used to have social anxiety, or they might not even believe it. And it is true though. I did have social anxiety, and I had it really, really severely. So I actually identify and resonate with a lot of some of the most difficult symptoms, right? For me, the symptoms I would get would be this intense choking sensation that I would get in my throat. That, you know, this like squeezing of my throat, feeling like I couldn't breathe or like I couldn't speak. I would have these insecurities. My mind would be running at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and my heartbeat would start pounding out of my chest. I had insecurities and anxieties related to fear of judgment, all kinds of stuff, guys, all kinds of stuff. And I want to share with you what has made the biggest difference for me, and that is the body of techniques that have come from NLP. And maybe, you know, we can start to talk about why NLP was so effective for me as opposed to traditional therapies like CBT or meditation or mindfulness, or the things that seem to be most popular now as treatments and approaches that may or may not work. Like if you go into any of these anxiety support groups, one of the things that you'll see quite often is that there's a lot of people telling you that you can't get over this, that it's a problem that you have to manage for the rest of your life. And that just hasn't been my experience, and it also hasn't been my experience with clients. That one of the things that NLP allows you to do is really understand how your subconscious mind is creating the anxiety in the first place. And NLP gives you a very precise tool, a set of tools to figure out how you're creating the anxiety so that you can then shift or transform it. And so let's chat a little bit about it. Where to begin? We can think about anxiety at different levels, so to speak. This is just a way of talking about it. So you can think about the state that you're in when you're anxious, right? And that state gets triggered off by the context that we call social context, right? So you have these contexts, they trigger off this state that we have labeled anxiety. And one of the things I would caution you against is labeling yourself as a socially anxious person. That even though that may be true, one of the things we want to start to become aware of is how your language influences yourself. So as soon as we identify with something, we bind it to ourselves. And when we bind something to our sense of self, we carry that with us everywhere we go. We take it into our future. And so one of the things that you can start to do is, instead of using big generic labels like I'm a socially anxious person, you can start to bind it down and saying, in this situation, in this context, I felt XYZ sensation. Now that might not seem like a massive difference, but believe me, it is. So when you think about what are the physical sensations that you feel, for me it was tightness in the throat, right? Really rapid internal dialogue, heart beating out of the chest. What I've done there is I've denominalized. I didn't bind something to my identity. I just said, in this situation, I felt these sensations, and I was thinking these thoughts. So all of a sudden, that gives me a little bit of a distance from it. And that also means that I'm not binding, in other words, Sigmund Freud, right? Sigmund Freud said that in the beginning, words and magic were the same thing, that there was no difference between words and magic. And it's interesting to know that in different cultures where we have different words for different things, that they have different experiences. So the quality of our language around the problem either freezes that problem to us, locks it in place, or can free us from the problem. So we want to start denominalizing today. You want to stop saying things like, I'm a socially anxious person. You want to say things like, at this moment in time, in that context, I felt these sensations. And what that will do is it will bind it to that particular context rather than making it so that you carry it into the future. So we can look at it, right? Back to the different levels of analysis here, or intervention rather. You can have the state of anxiety, and then you can also have the belief system that makes anxiety the right thing to do. Okay, when I say the right thing to do, think about it this way, that your emotions, your feelings stem from an interaction between your environment, so the world around you, and your map or model of the world, right? So there's this great saying in NLP, actually they stole it from somebody, but the map is not the territory. In other words, your model of the world. For example, if you've ever been to a restaurant, right, and you get a menu of what's about to be on the food, well, you have a bunch of words that are describing what you're about to order, right? But those words are not the food itself, obviously. I know this is a huge duh, but where we don't start to recognize this happening in your own life is with our emotions, right? So we have these events, and we have a menu, we have a map, we have perception, beliefs, attitudes about the world, about ourselves, about other people. And we confuse these things for reality. Now, this is a good thing, right? We need beliefs. So for example, when you're growing up, your mind has to be able to sort all of the information in the world into little summaries, so that you can package the information and then be able to use it quickly, easily, right? When you tie your shoes, you have an understanding, a belief system about how to just do that. And so we generalize it. If every time you saw your shoes, you know, you had to go string, right? And fumble around for years, it would not be possible to be a functional human being. So we're marvelous at learning new beliefs, new attitudes. The challenge is that sometimes we become fixated in an old way of believing, right? So many of you watching this will have believed in Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny, or pick whatever it was you used to believe in as a child, right? Everybody believed something at one point and has had the experience of when you look at that belief, suddenly it's not true. You just know that that's not true anymore. And everyone has had that happen. Where we run into problems with things like social anxiety is, number one, we're not aware of what the map is. We don't know what we're believing that makes that emotion the right thing to feel, because it's unconscious. And some people think the unconscious, because of the word subconscious or unconscious, they think it's this scary thing, and it's really not. All that unconscious processes are processes that are happening outside of conscious awareness, but we can access them, right? So if you think about conscious awareness, you have the 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information, and then you have unconscious awareness, right? Where this is the domain of processes that is really responsible for the quality of your life, right? And everything other than those 7 plus or minus 2. So just from a pure sensory perspective, as you're watching this, I don't know what it is that hopefully you're paying attention to me and absorbing this on a really deep, powerful level, right? Hopefully you're zoned in and you're fully focused here. And maybe you're having thoughts, right? Maybe you're thinking about some crush that you have. Maybe you're thinking about lunch, right? So your conscious mind, whatever you're paying attention to right now. But if I ask you to bring something to awareness that you're unconscious of, you can do that easily. So if I ask you to become aware of the sensations of your butt on the chair, you can put your awareness on something that was unconscious, bring it into consciousness. And this is why meditation is powerful. Meditation gives us the ability to become the observer, to be in a witness to that which we were thinking in the past, so that you can stop, get really present, focus, and then look at your old belief systems instead of looking through, right? I was reading this great book, Immunity to Change by Robert Keegan and somebody. And they're kind of confirming, this is out of Harvard, a lot of the things that neurolinguistic programmers have been saying for years now. I think probably 40 years that this field has been saying this. And one of the things he said is when you have a belief about something, you look through the world through those lenses. And so it filters what you even become aware of. My favorite example of this, you probably, if you're a fan of this channel, have heard me talk about it, is the luck experiments, right? People who believe they're lucky, they look through lucky glasses, lucky filters, so to speak. They did this experiment where they sent lucky people and unlucky people into a cafe, and they put $100 cash on the ground. Well, the lucky people see the cash, pick it up, put it in their pocket, and the unlucky group don't even see the cash. And so realizing the influence of your beliefs is really about saying, instead of looking through a belief system, you can look at it. And when you can look at the belief system, now you're free from that perceptual position, and then you have the choice. You get to say, what is the belief system? Now, this gets really exciting. This part gets massively exciting, because every limiting belief you have is actually an opportunity to an entirely new self-fulfilling prophecy. Limiting beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies. We filter reality for them, right? We look through them. It turns on and off our abilities, determines whether or not we take actions in the world, and so it determines our quality of life, the results we get, the relationships, the money, everything in our life is a reflection of our attitudes, our beliefs. You know this, I know this. This is common knowledge. What's not common is people who apply that knowledge, who know how to take those shit-stained glasses off and put on the rose-stained glasses, the ones that, you know, when you find the limiting belief and you begin to change it and you think about what you want instead for your life, you know, and what happens is you start to install that perceptual filter. You get to look at the new belief you're installing, see the world through those eyes. You create an entirely new self-fulfilling prophecy. Getting over social anxiety won't just get you over social anxiety. It'll make it so that you can make more money. It'll make it so that you can have better relationships. It'll make it so that your emotional body feels better. Anxiety is not good for us, right? We know that chronic stress and anxiety is not good for your mind. It's not good for your actual physical brain health. It's not good for the nervous system. It's not good for your longevity. It's not good for your critical thinking. It's not good. What is good is learning how to relax, learning how to be calm, learning how to transform negative emotions, right? So NLP gives you the ability to figure out what is that limiting belief that's getting in the way. Now, the other level of intervention we're going to call state. State is the state itself, so the feeling of anxiety. And for some reason, in psychology, we're well aware of Pavlovian conditioning. We're well aware, right? We know that if you elicit a response in somebody, right? So if in the case of anxiety, let's say you want to be calm, confident, at ease, whatever, right? Maybe, you know, for some of you, it goes beyond that. Maybe you want to be charming. Maybe you want to be charismatic. Well, there are charismatic states. There are confident states. And if you can learn to elicit those responses, right? We've known in psychology for some time that you can, using your thinking, prime yourself to feel emotions. And then we also have known in psychology for some time that you can set up a stimulus response. So you get an emotion, you pair it with a particular stimulus, and then you do that enough, or if you do it well, actually, you can do it the first time if you do it well. That's the neat thing about human beings, is that you can actually pair an emotion with a stimulus once, and it can be effective. Most of the time though, I personally, when I'm doing this type of technique on myself, I repeat it, because the more you elicit the emotion, pair the response, elicit the emotion, pair the response, it wires it in your brain. And neuroscience has corroborated this as well. Hebb's law, neurons that fire together, wire together. So we prime the emotion you want, we attach it to the stimulus, right? And in our case, what we would want to do for you, figure out what is that response you want, pair it to social context. And through a period of understanding what emotion you want, learning how to cultivate it, wiring it, so that you attach it to the stimulus over and over with enough emotional intensity that your brain forges a new connection. What begins to happen is that the old state, the old emotion begins to deteriorate. Not that you won't ever feel anxious, right? That I think this is one thing that people need to understand, is that these are normal human emotions. And people feel, I had a friend of mine, and I was telling her, this is back when my anxiety was very bad. And she goes, you know, Peter, I think I struggled with social anxiety too. I would get nervous around people. I would get nervous in meetings, But I think I was lucky because I never said to myself, I have social anxiety. You know, I would always just notice that it had happened and then think about how I want to be different in the future. And because of that, she was free from her own stigma. And by being free of your own stigma, you can go back into those situations, right? One of the things that I'm not talking about is that there's another way to overcome fear, and that's through exposure. That if you put yourself in the situation over and over again, if you start to gain skill, comfort, experience, it's very difficult to be fearful. The other thing you can do is start working on your social skills, right? It's a beautiful time. I don't particularly like the pickup community, but I will say one of the things that I realized from the pickup community, although it definitely has a lot of negative beliefs and negative frames, is that it encouraged men to work and develop on their communication skills, verbally and non-verbally. And you're seeing this now everywhere. You're seeing this with women, guys, teachers like Matthew Hussey, corporate executives, Olivia Fox-Cabane, teaching about charisma. That charisma is not something you have or don't have. It's more about your nonverbal communication. Are you presenting in a way that is charismatic? Which is what? Well, maybe that's a topic for a different video. In any case, you can work on your communication skills. You can get into environments where you're going to become more comfortable. And because she never labeled or stigmatized herself that way, she just became determined, absolutely and utterly determined, not to let fear hold her back, which is key, absolutely key. One of the things that you will see time and time again from people who overcome the most severe challenges in life, whether it's anxieties or depression or building a business. If you want to be an Elon Musk, one of the things is that you really need to become utterly determined to solve this challenge. And by the way, make sure whoever you get help from, and get help. Absolutely. If you're determined to solve this, this doesn't mean you watch a YouTube video and then you're done. Doesn't mean, you know, do the video, do the exercises, things I share with you here. And if that works for you, fantastic. But if it doesn't work, that means you get help. Now, that could be with me, that could be with somebody else. Whoever you get help from though, make sure that person knows that you're gonna be successful. Because one of the things that's a real challenge in the field of therapy today, I was on a plane, right? I was on a plane and I met this beautiful Iranian woman and we were talking about therapy. And obviously I'm interested in these types of things, therapy, etc. But her approach to therapy is one that has been long since invalidated. She's a psychoanalyst, and psychoanalysis, as Dr. Bandler would put it. Dr. Bandler's the co-creator of NLP. Just doesn't work. Never has. And there are a lot of people, it takes time for effective methodologies to make it through the rigor of scientific research. Because NLP is still so young, a lot of the scientific validity of it is still being debated, right? There's depending on who you look up, what research, what blog article, they'll say it is scientific, it isn't scientific. But if you actually go through all of the peer-reviewed studies, they're about 50-50 right now on different presuppositions. So for example, one of the techniques that said that NLP doesn't work was about eye accessing cues. That they said you can determine whether someone's lying by looking at which way their eyes move. And so this was a very poorly done study, right? Now, so of course that's not true. But if you look at the effectiveness of NLP interventions with people who have PTSD, people who have anxiety, people who want to become more confident, have an internal locus of control. That internal locus of control is the feeling that you're in control of the events of your life. Those studies are very positive. So it takes time for the most effective techniques to make it into modern day therapist office. And this is challenging for you as the listener, because that means that you have to kind of sort through what is the best that's possible. And sometimes our authority figures don't have the answer for you. So this is what you do. Remember, number one, you get determined. Because believe me, people have gotten over much worse than that. And two, you never judge yourself. You just radical acceptance. Because guess what? You don't know how to change your belief system. You don't know how to anchor new emotions. You don't know that. You don't know that. So you're not going to judge yourself for that. Okay? This is just something that we haven't been taught. So determination, radical, absolute, total acceptance, and you look for who's getting the results. You go, who is producing the results I want? Who has gone from anxious to not anxious? Who has the ability to get me to transform? And good NLP is very effective. Good NLP is the ability to identify what the belief system is, change it rapidly, and then get inside the state, and then start to attach the new state to all the contexts where you want it. So, if I could give you some how-tos here, right? I would suggest that you go back and you look at some of the, what I'll call the lower neurological level interventions of NLP. Anchoring, collapsing anchors, change personal history, swish pattern, changing negative self-talk. And these things will help you change the state or the emotion in the moment. Now, for many people, that's all you need. However, for some people, there will be a map, a belief system that makes anxiety the right choice, right? So if you think that if you're, for example, if you think being authentic means that nobody's going to love you or accept you, then that can cause anxiety, for example, right? So the next thing to do is to find out, what am I assuming here that makes this anxiety the right thing to feel? What are my assumptions, my beliefs? And what I need to do for this channel is provide more content on how to identify limiting beliefs and how to change them. To be honest with you, I still get help myself, not necessarily with anxiety, but I do get help from coaches. Because remember, we talked about earlier the ability to look at a belief system rather than be caught up in it. Having a coach, they're not in your belief system. If they are, get a different coach. You want somebody who can look at your beliefs instead of being caught up in them. So when I need help with things, I absolutely go to coaching. I get help. But that being said, for the most part, because I've been doing this so long and I know the tools so well, I'm fairly effective, I would say, with 80 to 90% success rate. When I want to change something, I know how. So the other option I would invite you to do is learn NLP. but learn good NLP. If you want some suggestions about where you can go to either get coaching, I would love to help you and assist you with any forms of anxiety, stress, nerves, anything like that you're experiencing. I would truly love to assist you with that. If you would like recommendations for where to go get training, please put it in the comments. Be happy to do that for you as well. All right, guys, thank you for watching the channel today. I hope this was insightful. I hope you start to understand, number one, excuse me, do not label yourself, even if it's true. The label is not helpful. Bind your limitations with specificity to the context in the past, right? I felt this sensation at this time in that place, over there in the past, right? 2, begin to investigate, what am I believing about this that makes anxiety the right thing to feel, and start doing a little inquiry. Is that true? If some of you do that exercise alone and actually think it through, you'll discover, actually, I'm hanging on to a lie. I'm believing some nonsense. For those of you who really do think that, people won't like you or that people won't love you, this is a really awful thing to carry that perceptions with you. And remember, there is no way for you to know that for sure. You're not actually dealing with reality. You're looking through glasses. You're looking through filters. And, you might as well get a set of perceptual filters that are going to help you, that are going to assist you, that are going to make it so that you enjoy your life more. So changing beliefs, yeah? And then your emotional state. Let's get you to a place where you know how to change how you feel. All right, namaste. Get out there, learn some NLP, apply some NLP. I'll be back later.